Spyro Dragon has been in my life for a very long time. It was my first video game. For as long as I can remember, I recall sitting in front of the TV screen playing through the PS1 classics. Then Insomniac Games became a first-party developer for Sony, and that left Purple Dragon in a flux. Spin-off after spin-off was released, until finally Chrome Studios did the unnecessary and rebooted the series. Or at least that's what most of the fans say about The Legend of Spyro: A New Beginning. Not only did it represent Spyro starting over, but it also meant that Spyro was taking on new gameplay focused more on combat and, get this, new character designs.
NANI?!
So what did I think of all this? Well, at the time as a kid, I just saw Spyro. Yeah, now he actually punched shit, but for the most part, it was still Spyro in my eyes. Yeah, I know people complained about how repetitive the combat was, but I thought it was very action-packed and fun. So, does it still hold up compared to how it did when I was a child? Well, of course it doesn't, because I am no longer a child anymore. If you are the type of person that says, "Oh, this game ruined my childhood," then I need you to shut the fuck up and go get a life. Get it? Got it? Good. The story begins inside the Dragon Temple. Inside is the heir of the dragon, and Ignitus is watching over the dragon eggs, waiting for them to hatch. Suddenly, the Dragon Temple is attacked, and Ignitus decided to rescue one purple dragon sitting alone. He floats the egg away, where it hatches and is raised by a family of dragonflies. After Spyro rescues Sparks by breathing fire and learns the truth of his actual history, that he is not a dragonfly, he leaves to find his true identity. If this is starting to sound like generic coming-of-age story, that's because it is. The Legend of Spyro: A New Beginning is really just typical coming-of-age bullcrap with some of the cringiest dialogue I've ever heard.
My enemy is my friend.
Does that mean what I think it does?
Yeah, we've got to help him.
Oh, brother.
Especially with Sparks. Like, everything that comes out of his mouth is fucking atrocious, and even nonsensical at times.
Then, it's off to karaoke.
Like, what prompts Sparks to say something like that? I will say the whole presentation of the story is pretty decent. So, Spyro is tasked with going to each of the different worlds to rescue the dragons imprisoned there by Cinder. In each of the worlds, except Dante's Freezing, you help out with the locals there and to free themselves from the grip of Cinder. In Tall Plains, it is the Outlawa, and in Munitions Forge, it is the Manmorsmalls. Overall, these seem to add their own little self-contained stories and make the world feel slightly more lively. At least slightly. Yeah, the world feels somewhat empty, but I'll get to that. So, at the end of the day, I think this story is pretty generic. The game really rocks when it comes to the atmosphere. One of the other places that I really find to be a joy to run around in is the Dragon Temple. Some of the details that stick out with the area, such as the banners that represent each of the elemental dragons, and the way that the dragons' heads move as you walk around the place. Too bad most of these dragon elders are reduced to a simple stereotype trait.
He can create another crystal from his powers. And before the volcano blows, it's... That's enough, Voltaire. There's plenty of time. Plenty of time.
I'd give anything to go with you, young warrior. but that crystal sapped the last of my will. I fear my fighting days are over.
Every generation must pass the torch to the next, Pterodor. Our time is done.
Yes, it is Spyro's time to shine. Now go to it, young dragon.
I mean, I guess Pterodor is the exception, but I feel as if these dragons could have been developed much more than they were. So that's the story out of the way. Maybe it isn't quite the strongest thing, but the most important thing is the gameplay, right? So here's the thing with the New Beginnings gameplay. It takes a completely new direction compared to some of the other Spyro games. Whereas the PS1 titles were more about exploring and looking for collectibles, New Beginnings seems more concerned with fighting enemies in combat. The melee combat for the most part feels very limiting in the game. Earlier on, you do learn a couple of combos. However, the system does not branch out of this, and what ends up happening is that most of the time you will only be doing the same combo over and over. Not because the game doesn't encourage you from branching out, but mainly because that is all that you have at your disposal. The game is challenging enough that it encourages you to use your different breaths. This is where things get more interesting. The breath system is deeper because you have both a main attack and a secondary attack. While the main attack is fire breath or ice breath or electricity breath, the secondary attack is like a projectile, like fire bombs or spinning icicles. There is an upgrade system where if you collect enough blue gems, you can level up your breath. These are nice and the game encourages you to switch from time to time. However, it can fall into dominant strats because the electricity breath allows you to push enemies against obstacles like lava. If you upgrade it to max, you will want to use it over and over. However, despite all that, the game's combat is functional and it can be satisfying. The sound effects that come with hitting another enemy is truly satisfying. Finally, there are the graphics of A New Beginning. From what I can see, it really makes me feel as if I am looking at a storybook. It does look relatively standard for a PS2. One thing that it does have in common with the PS1 originals is the beautiful skyboxes. I must say, especially in Munitions Forge, I found these skyboxes to be some of the most beautiful I've ever seen. Some levels are put under a different palette in order to signify the mood. Munitions Forge looks very dark and edgy. The same could be said of Cinder's Lair, the dark mist looming above in the air. There is some screen tearing from time to time, but it does set the environment very well. But what really sets the environment of A New Beginning is the soundtrack. Gabriel and Rebecca Newell have created a very good orchestral score that fits the mood. So do I think that A New Beginning should be burned in hell like most Spyro fans? Honestly, not so much. Overall, the game has very solid presentation, and the combat is also very satisfying. However, I will admit that it is very rough around the edges, with the story feeling very generic and cliche, and the gameplay also being very repetitive. Other than that, it is a Spyro game that shows great promise but doesn't quite live up to its full potential.
Surprise, motherfucker!